The conflict engulfing Eastern Europe entered a perilous new phase today, characterized by escalating covert action, targeted assassinations, and a chilling expansion of sabotage operations far beyond the traditional front lines. What was once largely defined by artillery duels and trench warfare in Ukraine's east and south has metastasized into a sprawling, shadowy struggle, prompting international observers to increasingly label it a dirty war. This shift signifies a dangerous erosion of boundaries where civilian infrastructures, political figures, and clandestine operatives become primary targets, blurring the lines between combatant and non-combatant, battlefield and homeland. The catalyst for this grim assessment was a brazen, meticulously coordinated attack deep within Ukrainian territory. Before dawn, a convoy transporting a high-ranking Ukrainian security official, Colonel Mikhailo Draho, was obliterated by a massive explosion on a highway approximately 120 kilometers west of Kyiv. Preliminary reports from Ukrainian emergency services, corroborated by geolocated social media footage showing a deep crater and scattered burning vehicle wreckage, point to a sophisticated remote detonated bomb, possibly embedded within the roadbed itself days or weeks prior. Colonel Draho, sources within Ukraine's Security Service, SBU, confirmed under a condition of anonymity, was a key figure coordinating clandestine operations against Russian logistic and command center in occupied Crimea and southern Ukraine. His specific focus, these sources stressed, involved networks targeting Russian naval assets in the Black Sea and energy infrastructure in Crimea. His death represents a significant blow to Ukraine's asymmetric capabilities and a stark demonstration of the adversary's reach and intelligence penetration. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in a hastily arranged late-night address, his face etched with fatigue and resolve, denounced the killing as state terrorism and vowed that the darkness reaching for our defenders in the shadow will be met with unyielding light. He stopped short of explicitly naming Russia, but the implication was unmistakable, stating the attack bore all the hallmarks of the aggressor's secret service. Simultaneous with the assassination, a crippling wave of cyber attacks slammed into Ukrainian critical infrastructure. Power substations in the Dnipro-Petrov and Vinnytsia regions suffered cascading failure, plunging several districts into darkness and disrupting water pumping stations. Traffic management system in Lviv malfunctioned, causing widespread gridlock during the morning rush hour. Most alarmingly, hackers successfully breached the systems of a major Ukrainian freight railway operator, scrambling scheduling data and forcing temporary halts to cargo movement crucial for military logistic and civilian supplies. Ukrainian cybersecurity chief Viktor Zora, appearing visibly strained during a televised briefing, attributed the attack to a hacking group known as Sandworm, which Western intelligence agencies and private cybersecurity firms have long identified as an arm of Russian military intelligence GRU. This was not random vandalism, Zora stated firmly. The synchronization and target chosen, energy transport, logistic, are designed to inflict maximum societal disruption, hinder military supply, and sow panic. It is a deliberate weaponization of the digital domain against civilian life. Emergency crews worked frantically through the day to restore power and entangle the logistical snarls, but the psychological impact of such pervasive vulnerability was profound. The geographical scope of the conflict visibly widened. Explosion rocked an abandoned Soviet-era warehouse complex on the outskirts of Riga, Latvia. Latvian state police, bolstered by NATO explosive ordnance disposal teams, moved off the area. Initial assessment suggested the blast was caused by the detonation of stored ammunition, though the origin of the explosive and the trigger mechanism remained unclear. Latvian Interior Minister Richard Kozlowski call it an act of sabotage aimed at destabilizing our nation, emphasizing Latvia's position as a NATO frontline state. While no group claimed immediate responsibility, Latvian intelligence service briefed government officials, indicating a high probability of involvement by Russian-linked sabotage cells operating within the Baltic states. This incident followed weeks of heightened warning from NATO's intelligence arm about increased Russian intelligence activity and the potential for false flag or sabotage operations within member states bordering Russia. Further south, the Black Sea remained a quadrant of tension. Satellite imagery analyzed by independent conflict monitors revealed unusual activity near Novorossiysk, major Russian naval base. Several landing ships were observed moving into heightened defensive position within the harbor, suggesting concerns over Ukrainian drones or missile threats. Meanwhile, Ukrainian maritime drones, operating with increasing audacity and technical sophistication, were reported harassing Russian merchant vessels attempting to navigate near the western Crimea coast. The Russian Ministry of Defense issued a terse statement accusing Ukraine of piratical act threatening international shipping, while Ukraine's naval force spokesperson, Captain Dmytro Pletenchuk, countered that Ukraine was exercising its inherent right to self-defense in its territorial water against vessels supporting the aggressor's war machine. The tit-for-tat maritime clashes underscored the persistent volatility of the sea lanes, vital for both Russian military, logistic, and global grain exports. The international response to this sharp escalation was swift, but underscored deep divisions. At the United Nations Security Council, an emergency session called by Ukraine descended into familiar acrimony. Ukrainian Ambassador Sergei Kilslisia presented detailed dossier linking the assassination of Colonel Draho and the cyber attacks to Russian intelligence, displaying fragments of the remote detonation device recovered from the highway and technical data tracing the cyber intrusion. This is not war, this is murder. This is not combat, this is terrorism, Kilslisia declared, his voice trembling with outrage. Russia has unleashed a dirty war, abandoning any pretense of adhering to the laws of armed conflict. Russia's ambassador, Vasily Nebenzia, dismissed the evidence as fabrications worthy of a cheap spy novel and accused Ukraine and its Western backers of staging incident to garner sympathy and justify increased arms shipment. He claimed the warehouse explosion in Latvia was likely the result of criminal negligence by Latvian authorities or even a Ukrainian provocation. The session concluded without any consensus or meaningful action, highlighting the Security Council's paralysis. In Washington, the new administration reacted with a calibrated mix of condemnation and strategic signaling. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a joint press conference with the visiting German foreign minister. Rubio, striking a firm tone, stated the targeted killing of a security official far from the front, the cyber attack plunging civilians into darkness, the suspicious explosion in a NATO nation, these are not isolated incidents. They represent a calculated campaign of terror and destabilization. The United States view these actions with the utmost gravity. He announced an immediate new package of sanctions targeting Russian entities involved in cyber warfare and the production of unmanned systems, specifically naming several technology procurement network and individuals associated with the GRU's cyber units. Crucially, Rubio emphasized unwavering support for Ukraine's inherent right to defend its sovereignty and its people against these barbaric tactics, but offered no immediate details on accelerated weapons deliveries beyond confirming existing commitments would be fulfilled. Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth convened a secure video call with his counterparts from key NATO allies, including the UK, France, Poland, and the Baltic states. The Pentagon later released a readout describing the discussions as focused on enhancing shared situational awareness in the face of heightened hybrid threats, and reaffirming the alliance's collective defensive commitment under Article 5. While no specific new troops deployment were announced, the call reportedly involved detailed intelligence sharing about the Riga explosion and the potential for similar sabotage attempts elsewhere in the alliance. HSwMS stressed the need for vigilance and resilience among NATO members, particularly those bordering Russia and Belarus. Privately, according to sources familiar with the discussion, HSwMS conveyed a stern warning about the consequence of any attack on NATO territory, emphasizing the U.S. commitment to respond decisively. This internal reassurance was seen as vital to calming nerves in the Baltic and Poland. The economic front also saw reverberations. Global oil prices spiked by nearly 4% following the reports of heightened naval activity in the Black Sea and the Novorossiysk movements, renewing fears of disruption to energy flows. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, coordinating closely with European financial ministers, issued a statement underscoring the continued resilience of the global financial system, but acknowledging the persistent headwinds created by Russian aggression. He confirmed the implementation of the new sanctions announced by Secretary Rubio, targeting specific Russian financial institutions, facilitating payments for sanctioned entities involved in the war efforts and technology procurement. The statement also hinted at ongoing efforts to tighten enforcement of the oil price cap coalition, aiming to further restrict Russian revenue streams without triggering a global supply shock. Within Ukraine, the atmosphere was one of grim determination mixed with profound anxiety. The assassination of Colonel Draho sent shockwave through the intelligence and special operation community. It demonstrated a level of penetration and operational capability by Russian agents that many had hoped was being degraded. Security protocols were immediately reviewed and tightened across various government agencies. The cyber attacks, while causing significant temporary disruption, also served as a stark reminder of the constant digital siege the country endures. Ukrainian IT specialists, many working under emergency power in darkened offices or from home via generators and mobile data, battled to restore systems and patch vulnerabilities. The public, wary after years of conflict, faced the attack with characteristic resilience, but also a deepening sense that the war was entering an even more unpredictable and sinister phase. Conversation in Kyiv cafe and on social media revolved around air raid sirens, the locations of the nearest bomb shelter, and the reliability of backup power banks, interwoven with fierce expression of defiance and support for the military. Analysts point to several factors converging to enable this dirty war escalation. Russia's conventional force remained bogged down in costly attritional fighting along the fortified lines in eastern Ukraine, unable to achieve decisive breakthroughs. The Kremlin appears increasingly reliant on asymmetric tactics, sabotage, assassinations, cyber warfare, and psychological operations to compensate for its battlefield shortcoming and to exert pressure on Ukraine and its supporters by targeting resilience and morale. The aim seems multi-pronged: to decapacitate Ukraine's leadership and skilled operatives, to cripple its economy and infrastructure, to test and stretch NATO's cohesion and response mechanism, and to create a pervasive atmosphere of fear and uncertainty within Ukraine itself. The attack in Latvia, whether directly orchestrated by Moscow or enabled by its intelligence network, serve as a stark warning to NATO members supporting Ukraine, signaling that their territory is not immune. Conversely, Ukraine, facing an adversary with superior resources and manpower, has increasingly embraced asymmetric strategies of its own. Its successful drone strikes against Russian warship in the Black Sea, deep behind enemy lines attacks on Russian airfields and energy infrastructure like the Kerch Bridge and oil depot, and audacious cross-border raids into Russia's Belgorod region by groups like the Russian Volunteers Corps and Freedom of Russia Legion. Though officially disavowed by Kyiv, Their actions are widely seen as serving Ukrainian interests. Are all elements of this approach. The dirty war label, therefore, applies to tactics employed by both sides. Though the scale and nature of attacks deep within sovereign territory, particularly targeting civilian infrastructure and official away from combat zone, currently appear more pronounced on the Russian side. The international legal implications are profound. Targeted killings of specific individuals like Colonel Draho outside of active combat zone raise serious questions under international humanitarian law regarding the principles of distinction and proportionality. Cyber attacks deliberately disabling power grids and water systems directly impact civilians, potentially constituting war crimes. Sabotage operations on the soil of neutral or allied nation further complicates the legal landscape and risks triggering wider conflict. Human rights organizations issued statements condemning the assassinations and cyber attacks, calling for independent investigations and adherence to international law. However, mechanisms for accountability in such a murky, deniable conflict remain weak, and the fog of war provide ample cover for perpetrators. As night fell over Kyiv, the city was a patchwork of light and darkness. Area where power had been restored, and others still waiting. Soldiers manned checkpoints with heightened alertness. Security service conducted sweeps, searching for sleeper cells or sabotage devices. President Zelensky reportedly held a late-night meeting with his military intelligence chief, Kirilo Budanov, and Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. The atmosphere described as tense and focused. The message emanating from the government bunkers was clear. Ukraine was now fully engaged in a multifaceted struggle, a dirty war where the enemy operates in the shadows. The resolve expressed was unwavering, but the path forward appeared darker and more treacherous than ever. The assassinations of Colonel Draho was not merely the loss of valuable officers. It was a declaration that no place and no person involved in Ukraine's defenses was truly safe. The explosion in Riga signaled that the conflict's tendrils were stretching further into Europe. The cyber blackout was a reminder of the silent, pervasive threat. The stage was set for a dangerous new chapter, defined by covert actions, deniable operations, and a chilling disregard for the traditional boundaries of war. The dirty war had well and truly begun. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. That's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, if this is your first time listening to So Cambridge, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build the show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.